Welcome back to In Pursuit of Truth. I am your host, Sir Patrick Mack. We have a slew of Q, and if you can see in my screen, I have so many pages open, and I would love to have a whole lot more to really get into this story. We're going to get right into this. I'm going to read them all first, and then we will get into the analysis. All right, here we go. 9 minutes after the hour of 11, Q is responding to an Anon who says Putin is Russia's president. His job is to look after the Russian people. Put yourself in his shoes. He wants to win. Why not take advantage of his enemies? Trump comes along. Russia, Putin becomes our ally. C becomes our ally. C and Putin are also under attack by the deep state, which is rooted globally. Q responds. POTUS never telegraphs his moves. Think logically. Why did POTUS announce his intention to pull out of Syria? Moves and countermoves. These people are stupid and sick. Q. "15 minutes after the hour of 1, POTUS and JFK Jr. Relationship. Plane crash 1999. HRC Senate 2000. The start. Enjoy the show. Q. An addendum to that on 20 minutes after the hour of 1. Signal intercept. We have a link. Old to new. As the world turns. Q. "24 minutes after the hour of 1. Situation room. Q. Responding to POTUS hunkering down today. 38 minutes after the hour of 3. We have another link. After all these years, no MSM positive media blast. Think, now Syria, Iran, Russia flex through missile tech. We started asking coincidence long ago for a specific reason. Those awake can finally see for themselves. Conspiracy, have faith, trust the plan." An addendum to that at 40 minutes past the hour of 3. No name in Syria. Timeline, purpose, who attended. No name panic. Health cover. Fast. Q. 44 minutes past the hour of 3. Adding on to that, you have more than you know. Spider web. Q. "26 minutes after the hour of 4. We have two pictures here. Here's the second. Connected. Q says, see the spider web? Q. "32 minutes after the hour 4, another picture with some highlights. Yeah. 33 minutes after the hour 4, Q responds, location, exact location, Q. 39 minutes after the hour 4, Q adding on, says pictures leaked for this very moment. Who, what is not pictured? What forces shadowed? No name. Contractors, special contractors. What was delivered? Smiles. Exact location. Exact. Buildings E of spiderweb. Spiderweb marker. Open source. Q. Adding on to that at 47 minutes past the hour 4, we have another link. Think double. Why are we confirming this publicly? Why now? "46 minutes after the hour 4, we've got another picture. And Anon says, haven't seen this one posted yet, photographer included. Q responds, we love phones. At 49 minutes after the hour 4, we love phones. No name should know better. Q. "58 minutes after the hour 6, knowing what you know now, watch again. Another link. God bless you all. Excuse me. Okay. Now we have another picture with McCain, flag, SEC detail background, all looking away. Trusted, close proximity. Refugees who worked, U.S. House, Senate, traitor, Q. This was 7 minutes after the hour of 7. 16 minutes after the hour of 7, we have more pictures. And Anon says he is the same guy, or E is the same guy as other meetings, sitting with his back to us in the one pic. And Q responds with a link. "32 minutes after the hour of 7, Q simply confirms to an Anon who says Muaz Mustafa and at Soccer Muaz is the Twitter handle. Born Palestinian refugee, moved to USA at 12. World traveler, plays football, worked in U.S. House, Senate, Egyptian, Libyan, Syrian Revolution. Executive Director of at Syrian ETF, Washington, D.C. "39 minutes past the hour of 7. Dig. Social media contacts work for who? Access level. Find all pics bigger than you know. One example of many. Awan Q. And Q is responding to this particular poster. Adding on to that, at 50 minutes past the hour of 7, why did Hussein protect ISIS? POTUS, ISIS, focus and destroy 1 year versus Hussein 8 years versus George W. Bush. DC access sold out. Bring back the gallows. Q. And then our last post, at 53 minutes past the hour of 9, we have a picture. Many different Marines, and Q says, no more. Okay, those are your Q posts. If you want to let it go from there, have at it. You are more than welcome. Otherwise, let's dial it back. We've got a lot to talk about, and this is really, really interesting stuff. And there's so much I would like to talk about. I'll never get to the time to do it. Otherwise, it'll be a massively long video. But let's take you back to this first one. POTUS never telegraphs his move. Think logically. Why did POTUS announce his intention to pull out of Syria? Moves and counter moves. These people are stupid and sick. Okay, well, you remember from our talk last night, we were talking about, why would POTUS want to pull out of Syria? We wanted to win. We wanted to kill ISIS. We wanted to finish this. Okay, but if we pull out, we're not going to be able to finish this. But we've got to get our troops over here to the border. Well, let's talk a little bit about this. This is from the Washington Post. Says Trump tweets condemnation of Syria chemical attack. Just happened the other day, saying Putin shares the blame. The likelihood of a military strike against Syria after a suspected chemical weapons attack increased Sunday as President Trump said there would be a big price to pay, and officials in France vowed the country would do its duty in responding. Okay, France called for an emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council on Monday to discuss the weekend attack, and 8 other nations joined in the request, including the United States and Britain, in reference to a warning by President Emmanuel Macron last month that France would strike unilaterally if Syria used chemical weapons again. Okay, that's the most important thing to think about. France is involved in this too, and they said they'll strike unilaterally in Syria. Okay, so why is Trump pulling out? Well, we talked about it. We want to get our troops back at the border. This is not really our fight. It's costing us tons of money. The president isn't into doing this. This has been going on forever. And the president keeps saying we already destroyed ISIS. He wants to focus on MS-13. Okay, now how does it respond to this whole narrative? Well, this is a great narrative right here that this Anon says. Let's read it again. Putin is Russia's president. Of course, his job is to look after the Russian people, clearly. Put yourself in his shoes. He wants to win. Why not take advantage of his enemies? Well, he can win. Putin can win. He's poised to win. He could win in Syria. Trump comes along. Russia, Putin becomes our ally. C becomes our ally. C and Putin are also under attack by the deep state, which is rooted globally. Okay, if you don't quite understand this, I think a lot of people do. But if you don't understand this, basically we're kind of comparing this to what we just saw in North Korea. Here we had this CIA propped up regime that once we exposed it became really, really, really meek. And now they're over in China, basically, I don't want to say surrendering, but we're probably going to install the actual regime as opposed to this puppet regime that was supposedly such a threat. Now it looks like it could be happening here. So the outward story is that we're going to war with China, we're going to war with Russia, when meanwhile we're going to war with the deep state. I hope that makes sense. I'm really oversimplifying, but I need to move on. Okay. 15 minutes past the hour of 1. POTUS and JFK Jr. relationship. plane crash. 1999, Hillary Rodham Clinton, Senate. 2000, to start. Enjoy the show. Well, this should make clear sense. First of all, I want to say, for anyone who grew up in this era, the president and JFK Jr. were buddies. They went to basketball games together. They hung out in New York a lot together. They were friends. Okay, they were friends. JFK Jr., for those who don't know, predicted Trump's run for president 20 years ago. Now, I don't want to read this whole article. This is from the New York Post from 2016. John F. Kennedy Jr. 20 years ago predicted the rise of Donald Trump as a presidential candidate. Michael Berman, one-time partner of Kennedy on the launch of George. Remember, his magazine was called George. Why would he call his magazine George? The Political Pop Culture magazine recalled the prescient comments last week in remarks to note a six-figure donation he and his wife had received. Okay, blah, 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 blah. So really want to tell you here. So they're asking about his political aspirations. And Kennedy says, I think you should be asking those questions of Donald, Kennedy said, according to Berman. He'd clearly have the most extravagant winter White House, the then 35-year-old editor-in-chief said. Said Berman of the donation he and his wife made to Elon's journalism program. This year, when the premise of politics is pop culture seems as relevant as ever, it's time to encourage a new generation of aspiring journalists to challenge the status quo. Okay, so my point is these guys were buddies. These guys hung out together, and they both had political aspirations. He was also running for office, and let's talk about that a little bit too, because what ended up happening to JFK Jr.? Well, in 1999, he was killed in a plane crash. On July 16th, 1999, John F. Kennedy Jr., his wife, Carolyn Bessette Kennedy, and her sister, Lauren Bessette, die when the single-engine plane that Kennedy was piloting crashes into the Atlantic Ocean near Martha's Vineyard. Okay, well, I don't want to go into the story. You know this happened, and if you don't, you should know. You can read about this. He was flying the plane. Kennedy was flying this plane. Now, real quick, I just want to highlight a couple things. Where are we here? Let's take you right down here. President Bill Clinton and his wife Hillary Rodham Clinton were among the 300 invited guests. They always turn up, don't they? These people always turn up. The Kennedy family's surviving patriarch, Senator Edward M. Kennedy of Massachusetts, delivered a moving eulogy. From the first day of his life, John seemed to belong not only to our family, but to the American family. He had a legacy, and he learned to treasure it. He was part of a legend, and he learned to live with it. Okay. Now, this is the interesting part. Investigators studying the wreckage of the Piper Saratoga found no problems with its mechanical or navigational system. In their final report released in 2000, the National Transportation Safety Board concluded that the crash was caused by an inexperienced pilot who became disoriented in the dark and lost control. Well, that inexperienced pilot was Kennedy. Okay? So keep in mind, this was 1999. Kennedy, Trump's buddy, was killed. Now, what was interesting about Kennedy? Well, Kennedy was a lot like his father. His father wanted to smash a certain organization into 1,000 pieces, kind of like this guy over here, right? Was it possible? They talked about this 20 years ago. Who knows? Well, all we do know was that JFK Jr. did mull running for Senate in 2000. This is the Daily News. As of 1999, a private poll in 1997 found that John F. Kennedy Jr. was by far the state's most popular Democrat. Okay, so he was running for Senate. Senate of where? This is from the New York Daily News. Who ended up becoming the New York senator? Well, we know that was one Hillary Clinton, folks. Okay, can't make this stuff up. All right, so you get the idea. What was the relationship? They were friends. The plane crash happened in 1999. Boom, Hillary Clinton gets Senate in 2000. That was the beginning. So Trump knew all about this all along. They knew this was going to go on. Okay, now taking you on 20 minutes after the hour of 1, we have a signal intercept. Then we have this link here, old to new. Well, what is this link? It's an old link. It's an old link here. Now I want to read the whole thing. An agency decision has been reached, establishing OSI maybe, as the focal point on the Earth Satellite Program. The AD has directed that staff supervision of the program will be the responsibility of the DAD/C, with substantive responsibility assigned to guided missiles. Well, Q puts this on this. Well, remember, they never figured out how the plane crashed. They assumed that JFK Jr. was just a bad pilot, huh? Is it possible that this, which is incidentally from 1956, way before the accident, of course, is it possible that this is proof which was released in 2017, relating to this crash. Enjoy the show. Indeed. Okay. 24 minutes after the hour of 1, we have Situation Room. Podra is hunkering down today, and Q says Situation Room. Well, I think we all know what a Situation Room is. Okay. Situation Room, incidentally known as the John F. Kennedy Conference Room, an intelligence management center in the basement of the West Wing of the White House. It is run by the National Security Council staff for the use of the President of the United States and their advisors. You get it. This is the place where the war goes down. It's the war room. This is where you make all the decisions. This is where everything goes down in the Situation Room. Okay. 38 minutes after the hour of 3, we have another link. Takes you to an article about Korea. After all these years, no MSM positive media blast? Think. Now Syria, Iran, Russia flex through missile tech? We started asking coincidence long ago for a specific reason. Those awake can finally see for themselves. Conspiracy? Have faith. Trust the plan. Okay, well, the link takes you to this. The Wall Street Journal. North Korea ready to discuss denuclearization, U.S. officials say. Now, this is a current article from April 9th. All right. And I'm not going to read the whole thing because you get the idea. North Korea is prepared. They're ready to talk about talks. Now, we don't know if they're going to fully denuclearize. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. But the fact that we even got him off of that island to even talk about it is a really, really massive deal. And the mainstream media isn't covering it. And there's most certainly not going to be a positive media blast. Think. Now Syria. So are we doing the same? Okay. We put all this pressure on the border, which makes Trump have to go protect the border. Once we go pull out all the army to go protect the border, now all this gas attack happens in Syria and it's our fault. This is their way of playing and creating chaos, and we're going to see a lot of chaos in Syria in the coming days, and we're going to see it in Iran as well. Russia flex through missile tech? Yeah, they've been flexing. They've been playing their part. Remember that we have the outward Russia. They're flexing their muscle. They had those cool missiles that could go all over the place. We predicted they could even hit the west coast of the USA, and it was this big deal, and they showed all this cool technology. We started asking coincidence long ago for a specific reason. Those awake can finally see for themselves. Conspiracy, have faith, trust the plan. Yeah, it does do Putin a lot of good. It does Xi a lot of good, and it does Trump a lot of good to outwardly let people buy into some of this narrative, because it allows them to do what they really, really need to do, and just let the talking points be the basic chatty talking points. I think you understand what I'm saying. Okay. Now we're going to get into some confusing stuff. 40 minutes after the hour of 3, No Name, who's a certain senator of Arizona. For those of you who are new to QAnon, No Name is somebody that we refer to, a particular senator of Arizona. Timeline, purpose, who attended, No Name panic, health cover, fast. Okay. Well, we're going to talk about who attended in the upcoming post. And we're going to talk a little bit about the timeline and the purpose and all that stuff. So, but all I want to touch about in this particular post here is the health cover. Remember, he's got brain cancer. Okay. Who knows? Maybe it's going to flare up real fast to avoid having to testify in what is likely to come. And we're going to talk about that story here. Adding on, at 44 minutes after the hour of 3, you have More Than You Know, Spiderweb. Q. Well, what is this spiderweb we're talking about? Okay. Now, we have an Anon that posts this picture here, and we'll go to this picture. All right. Some of you have seen this picture, and then this one too. Q says, see the spider web. Well, the only spider web that we can see is here, kind of on the back. It's not really a spider web, but I guess it kind of looks like a spider web. It's probably close enough. All right. Now we're going to go on this picture, but let's skip ahead. There's the spider web, or at least it seems to be getting confirmed. Q says location, exact location. Okay. So before we talk about the location and all this kind of stuff, let's talk about what all these pictures are. Well, first of all, No Name was in Syria, right? No Name was in Syria. Yeah, here he was. This is off of RT, and where's the date here? January 6, 2015. McCain and other top officials accused of illegally visiting Syria. Several senior U.S. and French officials, including U.S. Senator John McCain, entered Syria illegally without proper visas. You're not supposed to do that. You should know you're on a border state. Come on. on separate occasions, thus violating the country's sovereignty, Syria said in a complaint submitted to the United Nations. The list of officials also included former French Foreign Minister Bernard Kouchner and former U.S. diplomat Peter Galbraith, according to a letter dated December 30th, cited by Reuters and AFP. Okay, well, there's the picture, and there's a better picture there. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about this picture, but we know this, okay? Now, just quickly, let me tag this on. In the letter, Syria's UN ambassador Bashar Ja'afari, urged UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and the Security Council to put additional pressure on governments to implement the necessary measures against their nationals who enter Syrian territory illegally. Okay, well, John McCain, you're a senator from Arizona. What are you doing in Syria in the first place? You're not supposed to be there, and you got a visa. You should know that. You work in Arizona. What was he doing there? Well, people said, according to the Daily Beast and a lot of other publications, McCain, Obama to send new arms to Syrian rebels. So you're going to give guns to these guys? Oh, guns are illegal. These are AK-47s. Those are illegal. Ay, ay, ay. No name, where is your mother? In a private meeting at the White House on Monday with Senator John McCain, President Obama said he plans to give Syrian rebels more advanced weapons, according to McCain. If this happens, it would mark an expansion of Obama's latest Syria strategy of possibly mounting a military response to Bashar al-Assad's use of chemical weapons. Oh my goodness. Okay, well, we knew this story. We knew he wasn't supposed to be there. We knew it was a bad visa. And you don't want to be... Were they giving you those? Were you giving them those? AKs are bad enough. You're giving these guys rocket launchers too? Who is this guy? Who is this guy? Well, let's look at it. Okay. Can I get this any closer? There we go. Well, number one, Abu Musa, ISIS press officer. We're not going to talk a lot about him today. Number two, back here, we'll talk a little bit about him. This is Abu Bakr Al-Baghdadi. He's got a couple names. He's the head of ISIS. Oh, McCain, what are you doing? That's the guy. That's the ISIS guy behind you. Senator John McCain. Then we've got number four, Muhammad Noor. Now, we're not going to talk a lot about him either, but he was suspected of kidnapping like 11 people. So, probably not the greatest crew to be running with when you're overseas. All right. Then we've got number five, Nawaz Mustafa. And we're going to talk about him from the SETF, the Syrian Emergency Task Force. Interesting indeed. Okay, well, first of all, let's go back to the Q post. Now, Q wants us to know who these people are and the location. All right, so who are some of these people? Well, we've got an idea that we've got some ISIS guys. We've got some Syrian rebel guys. We don't seem to have any pro-Syrian guys. Let's look at Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. This is off of BBC News. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the head of the Islamic State ISIS militant group, has been careful to reveal little about himself and his whereabouts. Excuse me. Excuse me, I'm doing voiceovers all day. Rumors about his death surfaced earlier this year after reports that he had been seriously wounded in an airstrike in March by the U.S.-led coalition that is opposing IS. But the Pentagon said that Baghdadi's fate remained unclear. The IS chief allegedly broke a months-long silence in May by releasing an audio message in which he urged Muslims to emigrate to the caliphate that the group has proclaimed in areas of Syria and Iraq, but his only public appearance on video has been to deliver a sermon in Mosul after IS took the northern Iraqi city last year. Okay, so this guy, he's a terrorist, and he's really, a lot of guys want this guy dead. He's very dangerous, they say. Here he goes. Baghdadi has a reputation as a highly organized and a ruthless battlefield tactician, which analysts say makes his organization more attractive to young jihadists than of Zawahiri, an Islamic theologian. In October 2011, the U.S. officially designated Baghdadi as a terrorist and offered a $10 million reward for information leading to his capture or death. Well, there you go. That's probably... Is that what you were doing? Were you getting the $10 million to get him? Is that why everyone's smiling? He's going to get two. He'll get two. He'll get two. You see what I'm saying? No, you're not there for that, are you? Okay. Well, so we got McCain hanging out with this guy, head of ISIS. We got him hanging out with this ISIS press officer, a Syrian terrorist, and this guy from the Syrian Emergency Task Force. Let's look at this guy. This is Muaz Mustafa, born and raised in Damascus, Syria, before moving to America at the age of 12, drawing inspiration from the heroes of the American Revolution. Yes, of course, Muaz has worked on Capitol Hill on behalf of the Egyptian and Libyan revolutions. So he was part of the Egyptian and Libyan revolutions. Interesting. Since the start of the revolution in his home country, he has worked the back rooms of Washington, trying to bring the Syrian revolution to the forefront of political discourse. Oh, this guy's interesting indeed. Now, let's go even deeper in him. He's also a soccer player, born Palestinian refugee. Moved to USA at 12, world traveler, played football, worked in U.S. House, Senate, Egyptian, Libyan, Syrian Revolution, executive officer, director of Syrian ETF. Well, wow, this guy's a very, very accomplished guy. He's a football player. He's been a part of these revolutions. He really likes revolutions. And he's also the head of this Syrian Emergency Task Force. Well, what do they do? Oh, well, how about that? Humanitarian relief and emergency aid. Wow, they're always such humanitarians, aren't they? There's always a bunch of humanitarians. Okay, so we know who this guy is. I want to take you a little bit further, and this is a great blog. We're not going to go way into it, but I highly suggest, if you want to know this story, because it's so convoluted and I want to just stay on the Q post, but get into this. This is Balin.com. This is a personal blog from Christopher Balin. I hope I'm saying the name right. I don't know this person, but I just want to take you down, and I want to read a little bit right here. And this is talking about, if you know, back in 2012, this guy right here, James Wright Foley, was supposedly executed. And they're asking a few questions. And I want to read this part because this is really interesting here. Why has Senator John McCain supported the gang of terrorists who beheaded innocent American journalists? Why is a leader from the U.S. Congress meeting with and supporting groups of mad dog fanatics in the Middle East? The very same groups who we now find ourselves at war with. Interesting. Why is the U.S. waging war against the militant and extremist groups in the Middle East that it helped create and arm in the first place? Yeah, why is that? Senator McCain is now calling for a dramatic increase in U.S. airstrikes against Islamic targets in Iraq and said the attacks should also extend into Syria. Okay. So you can see that this is a big deal with some of these people. But I wanted to turn you on to this guy. One more guy. That's another picture over here. And this girl's important too, but I'm not going to talk about her today. We're going to talk about this guy. Who is this guy right here? Well, this is Salim Idris. Born 1957, is the former chief of staff of the Supreme Military Council of the Free Syrian Army, which is the main Syrian armed opposition group. He has a PhD in electronic radars and speaks 5 languages, including English. An East German trained electronics professor, he was a general in the Syrian army when he defected in July 2012. Idris is widely considered to represent the moderate elements of Syria's armed opposition, as armed opposition leaders under his leadership have subscribed to the pro-democracy proclamation of principle. Okay, interesting stuff. Oh, excuse me. So, here we go. This is John McCain. We've got the moderate opposition army here. We've got the head of ISIS here. The ISIS press guy here. Good old grabby hands over here. So it looks like a good crew. You know, it looks like a good crew. Maybe he's over there. You know, he's from Arizona. Maybe he went over there because he likes the dry heat. Who knows? All right. But I want to talk to you about one more thing before I get off of this. Under here it says John McCain in Syria. In the foreground at right, it's Muaz Mustafa. We talked about him, director of the Syrian Emergency Task Force, an expert at the Washington Institute for Near East Policy, a Zionist think tank. Let's go there. This is their website. Washington Institute for Near East Policy, a spin-off of the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, is an influential Beltway think tank whose members have advocated a host of hawkish pro-Israel policies over the years. It is considered a core member of the Israel Lobby, a constellation of policy and advocacy groups devoted to pushing an Israel-centric U.S. agenda in the Middle East. Okay. So there you go. These guys are related to a lot of neocons and things like that. And that's the connection there with Muaz Mustafa. Okay. So I kind of think you get the idea of what's going on. And we knew this story. This story was going on a long time ago, and it raised a bunch of eyebrows. Now Q wants to know about the location, the exact location. And in my opinion, this is where it gets really, really interesting. Now, I had some help with this from some of my Arabic friends who might help figure out where this is. This is from John McCain's actual site. And let me see if I can get this close. You can see the sign above here was left out in some of the other pictures. But what this says here is this basically says the new Syria. And then this is like a hospitality and general, like a, I don't want to call it a staging area, like a reception area. You sign in, reception area. And there's probably a better way to say that, but that's what that says up there. So where is this? Well, it's outside of Damascus somewhere. Now, according to some Anons, and I tend to agree, this is Damascus right here. And I just want to give credit to this Anon right here who found this. This is just outside of Damascus where we're talking about. Is there a spider web around here? Well, let's see. I want to direct your attention here. This is the neighborhood of Bab Tuoma. It's in Damascus, okay? And this is in a neighborhood called Ghouta. Ghouta. Moderates. Who's moderates? This guy's a moderate. Moderates slaughtered 9 in Damascus neighborhood. Again and again, the moderate terrorists in Al Ghouta countryside rained down the residential suburbs of the city by mortar shells. And who would stop these criminals with their big amounts of weapons, drugs, money, and missiles they receive under the cover of humanitarian aid? I think you see where I'm going with this. Okay, so I'll let you read this article if you want, but let me just turn you on to this. Yesterday, due to terrorists in Al Ghouta shelling the old city, Bab Tuoma district in Damascus, there were 9 martyrs. 21 were injured, many critically. Damage was caused to public buildings and people's homes. Okay, so we get the idea. We know that this is what's going on here, but why is this location so important? Well, check out what I found about an hour ago. This is from Yahoo, April 3rd, 2018. Rebels leave behind labyrinth of tunnels under Syria's Ghouta. Tunnels stretch into the darkness, some wide enough to drive a car through. In eastern Ghouta, Syrian rebels left behind an underground labyrinth fitted with hospitals and military headquarters. This network of tunnels is a real spider's web, says a Syrian army official who escorted journalists on a visit Monday to areas of the Damascus suburb recaptured from the rebels. Okay, so we've got all these corridors. Some corridors are wide enough to drive a car through, while others can only be accessed on foot. This network is about 5 kilometers long, connecting Jobar with the rebel-held areas of Ain Tarma and Zamalka. Okay, so, folks, what would you do with all these tunnels? What would you do with what we saw in this article? You can ship drugs, you can ship weapons, you can ship money, you can ship missiles. And you can do it all under the cover of humanitarian aid led by this guy right here. So we may have the where. What else can be done in those tunnels? Well, we talked about this all the time. We just got off the island with Jeff Epstein. What was he doing with those tunnels? Yes, indeed, folks. Human trafficking is indeed a big problem in the Syria war. All these places that are destabilized, we've got all these tunnels. We're finding all this human trafficking. We're finding all this destabilizing of regions. You can tunnels. Okay, we've been reading a lot about this stuff. You get the idea. Let me move on, please. Okay, so 39 minutes after the hour 4, pictures leaked for this very moment. Who and what is not pictured? Well, I'm not really sure, but remember, there were French officials, okay? If you remember this article that I took you back right here, McCain and other top officials accused of illegally visiting Syria. So there were a lot of French officials, so maybe some of them. What forces shadowed no name? Contractors, special contractors. Well, I can tell you off the top of my head, Blackwater. If you don't know who Blackwater is, Blackwater is a private, usually made up of retired military, guys who have gone through the military, have experience usually in special warfare, Delta Forces, Navy SEALs, guys who have special skills. They go into private contracting. They make 10 times what they ever would make in the military, and they fight all these little special proxy wars. Could be the very people that the Q team is fighting against right now. Who knows? Now, I could be wrong. We could be fighting with some of them. It's a very, very deep web when you start talking about those, and I don't want to say a lot because I've got some friends in some of those groups, and not all of what they're doing is bad either. So, well, what was delivered? Well, we think we know what was delivered. Guns were delivered. Smiles. Exact location. Exact. Buildings E of Spiderweb. Buildings E of, not building E. Buildings E of Spiderweb. Spiderweb marker. Okay, so who knows? Could this be the exact location of where the tunnels begin? Is this spider web to let people know that there's tunnels underneath? Was that their way of telling people this was the exact location in which to ship drugs, guns, humans, missiles? Hopefully not, buddy. You know what I'm saying? Okay? Tunnels, baby, tunnels. All right. Now, 47 minutes after the hour of 4, we have a link. Think double. Why are we confirming this publicly? Why now? Okay. Well, let me take you to this. This is the link it takes you to. Report. Blackwater CEO Eric Prince with CIA asset. Well, how about that? Blackwater indeed. Now, I don't want to go into this. I just want to read the first article. The first paragraph. But the truth about Prince, being Eric Prince, may be orders of magnitude stranger than fiction. For the past 6 years, he appears to have led astonishing double life. Publicly, he has served as Blackwater's CEO and chairman. Privately and secretly, he has been doing the CIA's bidding, helping to craft, fund, and execute operations ranging from inserting personnel into denied areas, like maybe McCain into Syria, places U.S. intelligence has trouble penetrating, to assembling hit teams targeting al-Qaeda members and their allies. Prince, according to sources with knowledge of his activities, has been working as a CIA asset, in a word, as a spy, while his company was busy gleaning more than $1.5 billion in government contracts between 2001 and 2009 by acting, among other things, as an overseas Praetorian Guard for CIA and State Department officials. Prince became a Mr. Fix-It in the war on terror. His access to paramilitary forces, weapons and aircraft, and his indefatigable ambition, the very attributes that have galvanized his critics, also made him extremely valuable, some say, to U.S. intelligence. Okay, I'll let you read the rest of the article, but I can imagine that you sort of see where this is going. Let's keep going. Now we're back on this picture again. This is the picture that I just showed you earlier. All right. Anon says, haven't seen this one posted yet. Photographer included. Q responds, we love phones. No name, should know better. So who knows? Maybe it's possible this was taken from his phone and that's where they got it from. Very strange. Okay. Now, 58 minutes past the hour of 6. Knowing what you know now, watch again. Here's a link. God bless you all. Okay, and this link is, and again, we're not going to watch it. We never do. But I encourage you this time that you do watch it. It takes you to this. The link will be below, and then you can always get it off the Q page. This link is the video that will get Donald Trump elected. He speaks. Now, if you listen to the speech, particularly after what you've seen in this video, I think it'll all come together for you. I think that's enough said on that. You'll understand. Okay. Now, 7 minutes past the hour of 7. We have this picture. It says flag. Security detail and background, all looking away. Trusted close proximity. Refugees who worked with U.S. House Senate traitor. Okay, well, clearly Q wants us to know about this guy. And again, that's Nawaz Mustafa. We've already kind of talked about him. That's who he's talking about. He's talking about a flag and the security detail in the background. Well, the security detail in the background looks like they could either be French or American or who knows where they're from, but they probably don't want to get their faces done. Now, where's the flag? Well, clearly Q's talking about this flag. Oh, sorry. This flag right here. He's wearing a diver flag. Diver down. No, I'm just kidding. He's talking about this flag right here. This looks like the Syrian opposition flag right there that McCain's wearing. He's not wearing a USA flag. Come on, you're a war hero. Oh boy, this guy. Refugees who worked with U.S. House Senate traitor. Well, that was obviously this guy that we're talking about. Okay. Now we got some more pictures, and this is before it looks like they've confirmed that it's him, but this is that same picture again. And now here's a closer picture. Nawaz Mustafa. This is his father. Now, when they came to U.S., they went to Arkansas, and that's what this is saying here. You can read this. And now here we have Nawaz with Romeo Dallaire. Now, who's this guy? Well, he's a Lieutenant General. Romeo Antonius Dallaire is a Canadian humanitarian, author, and retired senator and general. Dallaire served as force commander of UNAMIR, the ill-fated United Nations peacekeeping force for Rwanda between 1993 and 1994, and attempted to stop the genocide that was being waged by Hutu extremists against Tutsis. Is that how you say Tutsis? And Hutu moderates. Dallaire is the founder of the Romeo Dallaire Child Soldiers Initiative. Oh, but child soldiers, a senior fellow at the Montreal Institute for Genocide and Human Rights Studies, and co-director of the Will to Intervene project that released a policy recommendation report mobilizing the will to intervene. Okay, so this guy he's another one of these human rights guys. He really tried to do a lot of peacekeeping in Rwanda, and we all remember how that happened. Yeah, well, we ended up with a bunch of missing children. All right. And then we've got this picture as well, too. And Anon says he is the same guy as the other meetings. Actually, he is the same guy as other meetings, sitting with his back to us in the one pic. Well, again, we've already established who that is. Okay. Then Q takes you to this link, and I already took you there. It's the Twitter link of Nawaz Mustafa. We figured out who he is. Okay? Moving on. And here's another confirmation. This is just really lifted right off the Twitter page. Okay? This is the information, and Anon puts it, and Q confirms it. So that's all we're doing there. Then Q says, dig, social media. Sorry, I can't give you the date and time there. April 9th. Social media contacts worked for who? Access level. Find all pics. Bigger than you know. One example of many. Well, I'm going to go searching for more. And then he says, one. We're going to get some more pics, but let's just read up on him really quick. Now, we've already talked about this guy, Mustafa, but I just want to take you to who he worked for. Let me see where we can find him here. I'm sorry I lost you. Okay. After college, he worked as an intern on the Hill for Arkansas Democrat Representative Victor Snyder, and later as a staffer for former Arkansas Democrat Senator Blanche Lincoln. When Lincoln was defeated in the 2010 Tea Party wave, he briefly went into freelance journalism. But when the Arab Spring erupted in 2011, he found his calling. Okay, interesting. Okay, now, remember, Anon were the Pakistani brothers that were selling all the information to the Muslim Brotherhood. Okay, so how is that linked? Is that linked through this little Syrian emergency task force? Okay. 50 minutes past the hour of 7. Why did Hussein protect ISIS? Well, because it was his gig. He was propping it up. The more that you could have all this chaos going on in the region, the more you'd be able to run whatever you want through those tunnels. Remember how much money was getting pumped into ISIS, and where was it coming from? Well, we found out that it was coming from McCain. We found out that it was coming from Obama. Why would he do this? POTUS, ISIS, focus and destroy 1 year? Yeah, well, that's right. That's why Trump wants to pull out, because he feels like it only took him a year, and they pretty much destroyed him. It was the funding that they wanted to cut. That was what really kills these groups. Versus Hussein, 8 years. Well, he couldn't do it. And remember that he was blaming it on George W. Bush. George W. Bush couldn't fight ISIS either. Hussein the whole time was saying, well, we're fighting George W. Bush's war. I don't want to take you a bunch of links there, but you'll see what I mean. If you want to look that up, that was kind of how it went down. So all these people were this was meant to keep going. It wasn't meant to keep winning. It was meant to keep going. It was meant to bleed our country dry and sell us out to the Muslim Brotherhood. You get it? Okay. DC access. Yeah, we were giving people DC access. This guy, Mustafa, got DC access. Sold out. Bring back the gallows. Okay, and we've got one more, which is this picture here, adding on to that. And it's a bunch of Marines here. And let me see if I can give you, there it is. I don't know if that's any better. Well, they're all saying the same thing. I did not join the military to get, I don't know what that says, injured in other countries. Civil war, involved maybe. Stay out of Syria. I didn't join the Navy to fight for Al-Qaeda in the Syrian civil war. I didn't join the Marine Corps to fight for Al-Qaeda. Okay, so you get it. Okay. This was the opinion under Obama. And this was what was going on. Ladies and gentlemen, those are your Q posts. Quite a few. I know it was a little bit convoluted, but it's the best I can do in all this time. There was a ton of it. As always, if you like this video, please click like, share, and subscribe. It helps me a lot get this message out. And I always welcome your comments below. Please keep them constructive. Don't bang on each other, and don't bang on me either. We're all working really hard for one message. Okay, if anything else pops up, I will, of course, let you know. Until then, with In Pursuit of Truth, this is Sir Patrick Mack, and I encourage you to stay positive, stay compassionate,